Rome was terrified. Entire cities were burning. Roman legions were being wiped out, and the most dangerous enemy Rome had ever faced was marching freely across Italy. Hannibal Barca had already humiliated Rome again and again, crushing its armies with tactics no one fully understood. Senators whispered in fear, citizens demanded blood, and generals were desperate to prove their courage on the battlefield. Rome wanted a hero who would fight. Instead, they got a man who refused to. His name was Quintus Fabius Maximus, and what he was about to do would change warfare forever. But here's the question that haunted Rome at the time. How do you defeat a monster who seems unbeatable without ever facing him in battle? And even more disturbing, what if the smartest move is to do nothing at all? Hannibal was not just winning battles, he was destroying Roman confidence. At Trebia, at Lake Trasimena, entire Roman armies vanished. Tens of thousands of soldiers were slaughtered, ambushed, or trapped. Rome had always believed in one rule: meet your enemy head-on and crush him with discipline and numbers. But Hannibal didn't fight Rome's way. He lured, deceived, surrounded, and annihilated. Every time Rome charged forward, it walked straight into disaster. So when Fabius Maximus was appointed dictator, the people expected one thing: revenge. But Fabius had a terrifying realization. What if fighting Hannibal directly was exactly what Hannibal wanted? What if every Roman attack only made the situation worse? Instead of raising his sword, Fabius chose something far more dangerous: patience. And Rome hated him for it. Rather than chasing Hannibal into open battle, Fabius followed him at a distance. He watched. He waited. He refused every provocation. Roman soldiers mocked him, calling him a coward. Senators accused him of dragging out the war. The people demanded action. But Fabius understood something no one else did yet. Hannibal was far from home, deep in enemy territory, relying on supplies that could be cut, allies that could abandon him, and momentum that could fade. So Fabius attacked everything except Hannibal. He burned fields before Hannibal could use them. He destroyed food stores. He blocked supply routes. He targeted small detachments, never the main army. And slowly, quietly, Hannibal began to feel the pressure. Here's the unsettling question: can an army bleed without a single battle being fought? Rome had never fought like this before. There were no heroic charges, no glorious victories to celebrate. Just long marches, empty villages, and an enemy who couldn't force a decisive fight. Hannibal tried everything to provoke Fabius. He ravaged Roman lands. He massacred allies. He even marched straight through territories owned by Fabius himself, daring him to respond. Fabius did nothing. And that silence was louder than any battle cry. At one point, Hannibal deliberately spared Fabius's personal estates while destroying everything else around them. To Rome, it looked like betrayal. Was Fabius secretly working with the enemy? Was Rome's dictator a traitor? The accusations spread like wildfire. But here's the real question. What if Hannibal was the one being manipulated? Because while Hannibal looked powerful, his army was slowly weakening. Every day without a battle hurt him more than Rome. His troops were far from home, surrounded by hostile territory, and unable to force the kind of fight they needed. Fabius wasn't trying to win glory. He was trying to win time. And time in war can be more lethal than steel. But Rome didn't understand patience. Eventually, political pressure overwhelmed strategy. Fabius was replaced. New generals promised action, courage, and a decisive blow. Rome cheered, the army marched, and Hannibal smiled. Because finally, Rome had done exactly what he wanted. What happened next would become one of the most catastrophic defeats in military history, the Battle of Cannae. Over 50,000 Roman soldiers died in a single day. The battlefield was soaked in blood. Entire legions were erased. Rome had never experienced destruction on that scale. And suddenly, the people remembered the man they once called a coward. Here's the chilling question. What if Rome had listened to Fabius from the beginning? What if the war had ended years earlier without rivers of blood? After Cannae, Rome had no choice. Fabius's strategy became law. No reckless charges, no massive confrontations, just slow, calculated pressure. And this time, Rome did not break. Hannibal remained undefeated in battle, but strategically, he was losing. His allies began to abandon him. Reinforcements never arrived. His army shrank, weakened, and stalled. The war that was supposed to end Rome instead drained Carthage dry. And right here, pause for a moment, because this is the turning point. This is where Rome learns that victory doesn't always belong to the strongest army, but to the smartest mind. If you're enjoying this story so far and want to see how intelligence reshaped the fate of empires, make sure you stay with this channel, because the ending of this strategy changes everything. Now ask yourself this: did Fabius really win without fighting, or did he invent a new kind of warfare entirely? Because what happens next doesn't just affect Rome, it rewrites how wars are fought even today. By the time Rome fully embraced Fabius Maximus's strategy, the war had already changed shape. Hannibal was still alive, still dangerous, and still undefeated in open battle. But something was clearly wrong. He was no longer advancing, no longer terrifying cities into instant surrender. The unstoppable force that once shook the Roman Republic now seemed stuck. And that raises a haunting question. How does the greatest battlefield commander in history lose a war he never technically loses? Hannibal had expected Rome to break after Cannae. No civilization could survive losses like that. Allies should have abandoned Rome. Revolts should have exploded across Italy. And for a moment, it almost happened. But Rome did something no one expected. It refused to die. Instead of chasing revenge, Rome rebuilt, quietly, methodically, without panic. The Senate stopped thinking like warriors and started thinking like survivors. And at the center of this transformation was Fabius's idea. War is not about winning battles, it's about exhausting your enemy. Hannibal could not resupply easily. He had no secure ports, no steady reinforcements from Carthage. Every soldier he lost was irreplaceable. Every delay hurt him. Meanwhile, Rome's population, though battered, was massive. Its manpower pool was deep. Its logistics system was improving. The longer the war dragged on, the more the balance tilted, not in favor of the brilliant general, but in favor of the patient republic. Here's the unsettling question. What if Hannibal had already lost the moment Rome stopped reacting emotionally? Roman commanders shadowed Hannibal constantly. Never close enough for a trap, never far enough to be ignored. Whenever Hannibal moved, Roman forces blocked roads ahead of him. Whenever he stopped, Roman troops destroyed everything around him. Villages emptied, food vanished, local allies disappeared. Slowly, Hannibal's army became an island surrounded by hostility, unable to force the decisive confrontation it desperately needed. And that's when the psychological war began. Imagine being Hannibal, victor of Trebia, Trasimene, and Cannae, yet unable to finish your enemy. Imagine watching Rome rebuild legions you thought you had erased forever. Imagine realizing that every brilliant maneuver you make is met not with fear, but with silence. No challenge, no reaction, just time slipping away. How do you defeat an enemy who refuses to play your game? Years passed. Hannibal grew older. His army shrank. His cavalry weakened. Rome, meanwhile, learned. Roman generals studied his tactics, copied his methods, and trained their soldiers differently. They became more flexible, more cautious, more intelligent. Fabius's shadow strategy didn't just protect Rome, it educated it. Then came the final twist. While Hannibal was trapped in Italy, Rome shifted the war elsewhere. A new Roman commander, Scipio Africanus, carried the fight directly to Carthage. Hannibal was forced to return home to defend his own city. For the first time in the entire war, Hannibal would face Rome on equal footing. No ambushes, no terrain advantages, no psychological dominance. And here's the cruel irony. By the time Hannibal returned, Rome had already won. At the Battle of Zama, Hannibal was defeated, not by superior numbers alone, but by a Roman army that had learned patience, discipline, and restraint, the very qualities Rome once mocked in Fabius. The general who refused to fight had shaped the mindset that finally ended the war. Fabius Maximus did not live to see all the consequences of his strategy. He never stood on a victorious battlefield. He never enjoyed a grand triumph filled with cheering crowds. But his legacy was far more powerful. His name became immortal. Historians would later call him Cunctator, the delayer, a title once used as an insult, transformed into a symbol of wisdom. So here's the final question. Was Fabius a coward, or was he centuries ahead of his time? Modern military theory still studies his approach: guerrilla warfare, economic warfare, psychological warfare, wars of attrition. All trace their roots back to one Roman general who understood something timeless. Not every victory is loud, and not every war is won with blood. Rome survived because one man chose restraint over pride. And Hannibal, the greatest battlefield commander of the ancient world, was defeated not by force, but by patience. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable truth of all. Sometimes, the most powerful move is refusing to fight at all.